3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody, it's Stephanie with the Learning Project again. You guys, I'm sending you all the strength and love today. I'm so excited, you guys. I have a very special guest, Miss Keyonia. You guys, you are not going to want to miss this. We are going to be talking about what happens after you have the baby and a little bit about pregnancy too, because we want to know what can we do to make sure that we really live our best lives, healthy lives, and really recognize signals and things that are taking place in our body that we may pass up or we may overlook. So Keyonia's going to give us some of her personal experience and give us some of her best tips and things that she wished that she would have known. Welcome, 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 Keyonia.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Yes. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself so our listeners can get to know you.
Okay, so I like to say, well, I'm Keyonia. I am a mental health therapist, and I love to share that I am from Newark, New Jersey. I like to say that ever since I've moved to the West Coast, I like to just put that plug out. I'm actually an East Coast girl. Even though I've been on the West Coast for so long, I still want to hold on to my East Coast roots. So yes, I am. Yeah, so I am a first-time mom, 36 years old, first-time mom. I never really thought I would be a mom, but that's another story. Before I start, I just want to say that there's so many like misconceptions and things that we think we know or we have an idea about. But I feel like, as a therapist and working with moms for years and years, I thought I knew a lot. And then I became a mom. And so I just feel like there's not enough knowledge, there's not enough planning that could ever prepare you for really what it's actually like to be pregnant,
Yeah.
go through the pregnancy, give birth, and then be a mom. I feel like there's not enough. I mean, of course, there are there's nothing wrong with like learning, reading things, talking to people, but I feel like the actual experience itself is just so profound. So for example, I feel like I had all my bases covered. I had a doula, I had a midwife, I had a very, very supportive partner, I had financial resources. I feel like I had all my bases covered. However, I still was not prepared for being a mom. The postpartum, the breastfeeding woes, the sleepless nights, just really losing yourself. It's all about the baby and making this little, everything is about this little person and making sure that you do everything in your power for that baby to survive and to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I have a question, Keyonia. You actually said something really interesting that I don't even think we've hit on our podcast at all. What do you feel? What was your thoughts or understanding of motherhood before you had your baby, and what is your perceptions and thoughts about motherhood now that you have your little one?
I would say that before motherhood, in my mind, I thought it's difficult. It's a really you know, powerful and important task. And I felt like it was a lot, but again, I felt like it was a lot being an outsider. Like I imagine like, wow, being a parent is like the biggest thing in the world. It always was, even before I became one.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, it's a tough job. You have to be on all the time. It's a huge responsibility. And then I became a mom and I realized like, yeah, it's a lot. Like it's a lot. Like I don't even know if I could put
Into
everything
words.
into words. It's that much. And even it's so funny because even after I asked a few of my really close friends that are moms, I'm like, how come you never shared this with me? And almost all of them said there's just some aspects of being a mom that you can't put it into words. So I would not have been able to tell you. And I get that now because we can have a conversation I can share with you, but there's some things that it's like there's no words. You can't put it into words. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And even saying it's a lot is an understatement.
Yeah.
It's a lot. a roller coaster of emotions. It's beautiful, it's painful, it's nerve-wracking. You 1 minute you could feel like I'm killing this, I got it. The next minute you could be like, what am I doing? What is going on? I'm failing at this. And so that's why I think that it's really important to have a support. That is, I will say, Stephanie, that is one huge thing I've realized about becoming a parent. You need a village. You need a village.
Yeah.
You really, really need a village. And I mean, what I mean when I say you need a village is that you need support. You need support on so many levels.
Yeah.
So, you know, people to just come over and be with you emotionally, right? People to bring you meals, people to come hold the baby while you take a shower. And I have a partner, a very supportive partner, but the couple, the family needs support. Like, just especially new parents, they need support. They need a lot of hand holding. And so I feel like that can make or break a situation.
Man, this is so deep, you guys. I don't know if this is sending strength and love to you, but it is sending so much strength and love to me right now, because what you're talking about are conversations that aren't had. You know what I mean? I just think,
and that's something I noticed too. That's also something that I noticed. And even the postpartum. Okay. And the thing I love about sharing for me is that I am a mental health therapist, right? And I am all about healing and self-care and all those things. And those are things that I practiced even before I was pregnant and during my pregnancy journey. Lots of mindfulness, lots of meditation, lots of exercising, lots of good eating, having a therapist, you know, regular massage, just regular self-care. And that does not prevent you from suffering from postpartum. Like, all those things are good, and I'm not saying don't do them, but it doesn't exempt you from other, you know, things to come, like the postpartum. I don't feel like it necessarily prepares you. I think it's good for your body to continuously pour in, but it's not like, oh, I've done all these things, because I feel like a part of me felt like I'm really healthy mentally and I got this. And I feel like it doesn't matter. And I've talked to enough moms, professional moms, non-professional moms, mental health therapist moms in the medical field, and it doesn't matter. We are human and we are not exempt to it's really kind of a trauma. It's a trauma. Like, going through pregnancy and childbirth is a trauma. And it has an impact. Although there's a lot of beauty on the other side of it, it still has its negative impacts. And I don't think we talk about that enough, because I feel like we like to paint motherhood as just this beautiful, warm and fuzzy, which it definitely is. I'm not going to deny that. But we don't talk much about the dark side, about postpartum, which I really suffered with greatly.
So we've got to hear your story. So what is your story, and how does this all fit in?
So I don't know, where do you want me to start?
Wherever you want to start, because this story is powerful. My mouth was on the floor.
So you know what? I will start with being diagnosed with cervical cancer a few years ago. So first of all, I never wanted children, and it's so amazing because everybody's story or journey to parenthood is so different, and I just really appreciate and value all stories, no matter what they are. But for me personally, I never wanted children. I was okay with that. I was okay traveling, being the auntie, and, you know, loving all my nieces and nephews, loved children, worked with them all the time. I didn't want that responsibility. I felt like it was a huge deal. Really, it's a badge of honor. And I didn't want that. So after, you know, the cervical cancer, and I beat that, I was told, even before that it would be really difficult for me to have children, which was fine for me because I never wanted children. So, you know, last year, minding my business, living life, me and my partner planning all the millions of trips we're going to take. And I found out the first time I found out I was pregnant, I actually had a miscarriage, which was shocking because I wasn't trying and I didn't even know if I could.
How did you know
So
you were having a miscarriage?
So I started bleeding and I thought it was my period, but it really wasn't. It was, yeah. So I ended up finding out that I was having a miscarriage, which was really traumatizing and traumatic. Although I didn't want children, it was still traumatizing and traumatic, which is so interesting because I'm like, I didn't even want children, but to know that I was pregnant and losing it, that really hit me hard.
Yeah. Can I put a pin in that? Because for our listeners, we've been talking about this a lot, is that, you know, when you have a miscarriage and you don't know that you're actually having one, for people like me, when I had my miscarriage, especially this last one, I talk a lot about this last one because it was so traumatic for me. I didn't know I was pregnant. And I'm sitting up there, you know, doing whatever, you know, having margaritas. And I'm like, I could tell something was wrong with my body. My husband and I, we actually got in an argument. And I was like, you're acting like a psycho. Like I could feel myself like, rah! And I was like, something's not right. And you know, I didn't realize I was pregnant, and I lost the baby, and that was really hard for me. Because by the time I actually realized I was pregnant, took a pregnancy test, and I was like, yay, and then gone, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I stopped tracking my cycles and stuff. So I didn't realize, like, oh, you're supposed to be on your cycle and you're not. And
Right.
so, you know, when I was in that point and I was just like so upset, I felt like my body had betrayed me. And I felt like this just this disconnect with my body. And you know, as women, we have to have that connection with our body. And I felt such a disconnect, this mistrust, this betrayal, all of the things that I literally like felt were just like on my shoulders. And I really say, like, for women that are A-type personalities, that career going women, like when we don't have control, like we're never really in control. Let me just say that. But
I mean, come on now. Yeah. Yeah. But I feel you.
So for you, you know, when you went through that, process, what happened to you then?
When I had the miscarriage was when I was like, I want a baby. Because I feel like I lost something that I didn't even know was there.
Wow.
And I wanted it. I was like, I want my baby. And that was the first time I ever said it out loud. And I was like, okay. And then, but I also, if I'm completely honest with myself, I also felt like, what if that was it? For me, what if that was it? What if that was my only chance?
Yeah.
So it was just like a flood of emotions. Like, what if that was my only opportunity and I just lost it? No, I want it back. That's not fair. Kind of. That's really. It was really. Really that. So, you know, I went through that process. To be honest, to this day, I don't even know if I'm still healed from that. Because it kind of creeps back up sometimes. But it was. I didn't really focus on it because I got pregnant really quickly after. So I had the miscarriage, and I had the miscarriage like December, January, and I was pregnant again by early February.
Wow. Was your partner on board with like how did it affect you guys' relationship, and how did he or did he not support you?
Well, you know, it was really fast. He was supportive. He was always very supportive. He definitely, because I didn't want children, and I think he didn't care either way. So he was like, okay. And we were fine with just not being parents. We had other goals and plans, right? And so when the miscarriage happened, he was very, very supportive.
Good.
And, and I said, I was like, I changed my mind now. I think I do want this. And he was like, okay, but I think we should like wait a little bit longer. Let's put some things in order before we do that. And I was like, okay, but we didn't prevent it. So it happened like right away. And so it happened really fast, but he was always, always very, very supportive of all the decisions.
That's so
thereafter. Awesome. Yeah. So, I was pregnant right away again, and it moved so fast. And I feel like pregnancy for me was very difficult because I was one of those 2% of people, which I think they say it is, that had morning sickness the whole 9 months.
Oh,
Yes, yes,
oh my gosh.
yes, yes. I was sick the whole entire time. There's no amount of ginger, no amount of anything that took away my nausea. I never threw up, but I always felt nauseous. And that's the worst feeling in the world, to just feel
Yeah.
nauseous 24/7. That was my whole entire pregnancy. I felt nauseous. I felt lightheaded. I had a headache, and I worked out 4 to 5 days a week. I ate a plant-based diet. I drank tons of water. I mean, I was very healthy. I, got glowing reports from my midwives. I was doing everything. I was the model patient, but I had morning sickness
Oh
the
my
whole
word.
entire time. I had a doula that was very supportive. I got, lots of massages, pregnancy massage. I mean, it was great, but I was sick. So I don't feel like I'm not one of those moms that's like, oh, pregnancy is like the best thing in the world. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my baby bump. No, none of
No,
that.
no,
None
no.
of that.
And then really, this is a really good conversation because, they always have that face of, radiant, shining mother. And for some women, it's not. I actually was watching a documentary maybe a couple months ago, and it was about a lady that had morning sickness all the way up to 9 months. And she was like, and this is a very controversial topic. I don't know enough to be saying whatever, but I'm going to talk about it. So, she was smoking marijuana. And she was like, the only way that I could stop myself from literally throwing up was doing this. So,
Mm,
but her doctor was like, don't do it. And she was like, I can't because I'm losing weight. Like I can't even keep nothing down. I'm tired of being in the hospital pretty much for months at a time. So
mm.
how did you manage that? And how did you keep yourself in a decent headspace? Because I don't even know if you can get yourself in like I don't know what kind of headspace you can get yourself
I
in.
mean, I dealt with it. I think that having a doula was
Mm,
really important. She was very supportive, and we had sessions, like meditation type sessions, so that was helpful. I got weekly massage. Again, I worked out. I meditated. I tried to just stay grounded. I complained and vented to my partner and whoever would listen a lot. So,
yeah.
I just feel like I just kind of took it one day at a time and tried to do things that made me feel good, even though I didn't feel good. And I feel like I'm glad you asked that, because I feel like as humans, it's difficult for us to, like, I think a lot of times we just want the pain, whether it's physical or emotional, to go away.
Yes.
And there is health in sitting in it and sitting with it. And
Mhm.
I mean, metaphorically, there was nothing I could do, because I spent the first 4 to 5 months trying to I had opious amounts of ginger, because that helps with nausea, right? It never helped. So,
Wow.
so I feel like I spent a lot of time trying to figure out stuff and things to do to take away the nausea, right? And then maybe it was the fourth or the fifth month where I was like, okay, this is just what it is. And
Yeah.
so I just accepted it. Doesn't mean I liked it. It doesn't mean I didn't have bad days. It doesn't mean I couldn't have good days. I just accepted it for what it was, because it wasn't going away. And it
Mm.
literally did not go away until I pushed that baby out.
Wow.
Seriously. It was the first time in 9 months that I was not nauseous, because I was even nauseous during my delivery.
Oh
And
my
once she came
word.
out, it was like, I remember thinking to myself as she was laying on my chest, oh, I'm not nauseous.
She said,
Seriously.
I'm gonna put you through, mama. You gonna know I'm
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. So I was nauseous the whole 9 months. And I feel like I just tried to stay grounded. And that does not mean I didn't have bad days. That doesn't mean I didn't have a bad attitude sometimes about it, because I
Yeah.
did. But I tried to do, the best that I could given the situation, because it was literally nothing I could do to take it away.
Yeah. And I think that's important too in this conversation, that we don't judge people for doing or not doing or how they do something to try to bring
Absolutely.
themselves to a certain place. I had, for those that are looking at my podcast and looking at everything, I just recently announced that I am pregnant. And
Congratulations.
one of the things that have been was really difficult for me was um, mindset, and I think when you're going through pains and you're going through different foreign feelings or experiences with your body, your mind, it's like a hard thing to wrap around, I can't relate to the morning sickness because I haven't had any, but one
Lucky
of the
you.
things that's really interesting is from the time that I realized I was pregnant, I actually thought I had thrown my back out. And so
Mm,
this back thing has just been like consistent, just always talking about my back, talking about my back. And so, it kind of puts you in this position like, how are you going to manage your pain? How are you going to manage your emotions? Because sometimes when you don't feel good, you can start reacting a certain way.
absolutely.
You,
Absolutely.
your mood changes. And so you have to be so
Irritable.
conscious of what you're saying, how you're saying it, and what does this look like? It's difficult.
Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. A lot of mindfulness, a lot of mindfulness when you're pregnant, because literally there's a lot of things that's out of your control. And so for me, I was really trying to focus on what can I do? How can I stay present? Because I also was reading a lot about how you, how the way you feel and think can impact your delivery. So I'm like,
Yes.
oh, great. So I was really just trying to stay present, trying to just be open. And like you said, people who have control issues. One of the pregnancy books I read was hugely about letting go and going with the flow, which is something I have a very difficult time with. But I do feel
Mhm.
like pregnancy and motherhood is definitely teaching me patience and just you gotta let go sometimes. You gotta
Wow.
let go. Hmm.
Wow. This is so good. You guys, I don't know who needs to hear this, but I know this is sending me so much strength and love. So make sure that you are not being greedy, you guys, okay? Share this podcast, okay? Do not give anybody flowers or candy. Y'all know my quote. Give them something that's good for their soul. That chicken noodle soup crock pot good. Make sure you send them this podcast. So, Kiana, what does the next part of your journey look like? You've gotten to this point where you're pregnant, you're going through morning sickness through the full 9 months. What does this next part look like for you?
So although the pregnancy was very, very rough, I will say that my birth experience was beautiful and seamless. And I feel
Mm.
like it's important to share this and to talk about this because, as Black women in particular, we know the statistics. We have the worst birth outcomes,
Yes.
and for ourselves and our babies, we are more
Yes.
likely to die. And so, and that is very real. And there are very specific reasons as to why why that is the case. But
Yeah.
I will just talk about how beautiful my experience was. And I feel like a lot of it had to do with me at really advocating for myself. I experienced some
Yes.
not so good things at the beginning of my pregnancy medically, but dealing with medical professionals, but I advocated a lot for myself. I wrote out a plan of how I wanted things to go, had really good conversations with my doula and my midwife and my partner about how I wanted things to go. And I wrote it down. And so specifically, I didn't want any drugs for any reason. Actually didn't even want to have my baby in the hospital. I wanted to have her at home, but
Yeah.
my partner was like, okay, I got to draw the line somewhere. Like, I'm with you with all this natural stuff, but no, we're going to the hospital. So I'm
Right.
like, okay, if we got to go to the hospital, I want to be in charge and I want to be in control. And that's not really always the case when you go to the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're in control. They do things how they want to. So luckily I had a great doula and a great midwife that was like, we're going to do this how you want to do it.
Right.
So first of all, the day I went into labor, I didn't know I was in labor. I was like spending the morning like, is this it? Is it not? I had cramps, but it wasn't like intense cramps. And I have a very high pain tolerance because my doula and my midwife was like, you are not going to question if you're in labor. You're going to know. Well, wrong. If you have a high pain tolerance, that's wrong. So
Wow.
I spent like 3 or 4 hours, like, am I in labor? What is this? I know I felt different. It was a pain I never felt, or a feeling I never felt. So
Mhm.
I took a shower in the morning. I called my doula and I talked to her. And through the conversation, she's like, yeah, this is time. And so luckily, my partner was on his way home, and we packed up. And actually, I was 38 weeks, so she came at 38 weeks. And so I thought I had time to pack up and do extra things. So anyway, we we packed everything up, and we got to the hospital. And by the time we got to the hospital, I could barely walk. I could
Wow.
barely, yeah. But I was being stubborn. He went to get a wheelchair. I'm like, I don't need a wheelchair. I'm gonna walk. And so a few nurses, they seen us coming, and they were like, sir, she needs a wheelchair. And he's like, she's stubborn. She does not want a wheelchair. They made me get in a wheelchair. I actually had a checkup, my 38-week checkup, but they were like,
Wow.
no, you are going to labor and delivery. So I got up there. My midwife was there, and I did not want to be hooked up to any machines. I did not want them monitoring the baby during the whole pregnancy. And I wanted to be free.
Yeah.
So my midwife was like, okay, we're going to check her every few, whatever. We're not going to hook you up. We're going to let you be free. So I labored for about, I got there, I think at 3 o'clock, and I labored until 7 o'clock. The nurse massaged me. I sat on the ball because I didn't want anything, I didn't want any I wanted this to happen naturally.
Yeah.
So, and I also did not want to lay down having my baby because that's not natural. It defies gravity.
Yes.
So I was on my knees on the hospital bed giving birth. So anyway, I sat on the ball, the nurse and my partner, they massaged me.
You know what? I cannot pass that by what you just talked about. So the position that you chose, what made you, or what not, like what knowledge did you get about this? Because we haven't talked about this on the podcast either, about positions that you can go into to have a baby. And some people are probably listening to this like, what do you mean laying on your back is not the way that you should have a baby? I've learned a lot about this just because I've helped a lot of people with their babies. But tell me a little bit about what was your awakening moment and what made you realize that you had more than one position to have a baby?
So, well, I'm just a very natural person anyway. I want to be as natural as possible, right? And I do a lot of research on a lot of different things. But anyway, and that's another reason why I didn't want to go to the hospital, because I was like, they're not going to let me do what I want to do, right?
Right.
But so my partner and I, we took birthing classes, and the birthing classes were provided by the facility where I was going to have the baby. And so in the birthing class, we took birthing classes, breastfeeding classes, and how to handle a newborn once you bring the newborn home. So in the birthing classes in particular, they showed the many different positions that you can be in to have a baby. And one of the women on the video, she was on her knees having the baby, but on the hospital bed on her knees, because there are limitations in the hospital.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, you can do that in the hospital? And so the instructor, she said, yeah, so, we let the mom do what's comfortable for her. Right. And so I planned to do that anyway. I didn't know how it was going to play out, but watching that video and going to that birthing class really helped me. But yes, it's like before hospitals were invented, back in our ancestor times, we did not have babies laying on our backs. We squatted and the baby came down, because the birth canal is, if you're laying down, that is defying gravity. So that is sometimes why people have a hard time. That's why the baby has a hard time coming out sometimes, because you're laying, it's going against gravity.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah,
where babies will keep coming in and out.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're like, why are they doing that? And then that makes sense.
Right. So yeah, that is how that happened. So yeah, we went through the process and massage, but what happened was my midwife, she came in and she said, you are fully dilated and you are ready to go, but the only reason why this baby is not out yet is because your water bag is in the way. So if you let me bust the water bag, the baby will come. And so me, like, I'm really anti-medical anything. I'm like, I don't want her to do it. The water bag needs to bust on its own. But my doula and I had this conversation, and she told me before, like, sometimes the water bag is in the way and it needs to be removed, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this about 15 more minutes. If the water bag doesn't bust, then sure, you can bust the water bag.
Yeah.
So she did that. And as soon as she bust the water bag, the baby came
Wow.
right after. Right. No issues. The baby came right after that.
Wow.
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 So it was a good experience because they honored, I mean, I had full control. They honored exactly what I wanted. And it was really nice because they were supportive, and they even told me, like, we've never had a patient like you. And I believe it, because most people, they go to the doctor and they give up their power and their control that I don't really know that they even know that they have. And they're like, you tell me what to do. And when I go, I'm like, no, this is how this is going down.
Wow.
This is my body, it's my baby, and this going down this way, or I'm getting out of here.
Oh my God. Okay. You guys, Keyonia just dropped the gym. If you didn't get this, rewind and pick back up. We've been talking so much about how girls are developed and trained and brought up to be polite, not, overstep their boundaries, not be too pushy. Because if you're too pushy, you're too the B word. And, you need to be like this or be like that. Don't do this, don't do that. We have a lot of rules as girls, women growing up that we consciously and unconsciously
Absolutely
really learn. And the interesting thing is, when I was telling everybody about, infertility, all of these different things, one of the parts that we talk a lot about is learning to petition for yourself.
Absolutely.
Brittany, she's one of my guests. She talks a lot about, not knowing how to petition for herself when she was losing her baby. We've been talking to other women about how they were like, I don't want to bother anybody. Isn't this interesting? I bother someone about my body that you're responsible for, and I could die.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
It's this weird way of thinking and really being able to say, I need something and you're not giving it to me. And this was honestly this last procedure that I went through. I had to do that with my doctor. I had to say, listen, I don't feel like you are giving me any like good care. Like, I'm not feeling the clinic. I don't want to be here.
Absolutely.
I have to be here because I can't go to LA. I was supposed to go out to LA for all my clinic stuff because I got a new doctor. Couldn't do that because COVID. So I'm like, now I have to stay here at this clinic, and this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm feeling, and I need you to know this. And the first thing she said was, I'm so sorry you've had this experience. My nurse, that I got a new nurse that worked at this facility, and she was like, hey, I want to be able to show you I'm going to be there for you, and I'm going to treat you like an individual, and you matter. And I just think it's so important that we continually practice petitioning for ourselves.
Absolutely.
If someone doesn't understand our need, try to explain it, but it's not our responsibility for them to get it.
It's not.
This, and this is what I need for my birthing plan. And there's some doctors that are like, no, you're gonna do it this way. Okay, well then I need another doctor.
Absolutely. And not being afraid to be like that. Not being afraid to be like, this is not going to work for me, so I'm going to go elsewhere. Yes. And what the doctors say is not law. We are the experts in being us and our bodies. And that's just what it is.
Right.
So and that's really one of the things that I do and want to continue to do is to support people in advocating for themselves, because even throughout this process, I think about the vulnerable moms who might not have resources, and they don't have the attitude or the ability and the knowledge that I have to advocate for themselves. And that's why they have such poor experiences, or they die, or they lose their babies because they didn't have the information and the knowledge or the resources to advocate for themselves. And advocating for ourselves is very, very important, especially as Black women navigating these white systems that were not created for us to protect us and to love on us and love our babies. That's just what it is.
Yeah. And this is the thing too. I think some people, are going to listen to this and they may like, this isn't true. Why would you say that? It is true.
It's a
true
fact.
statement. It's a fact. There's research.
Statistics say that Black women have the worst birth outcomes. That's statistics.
Yes.
That's facts.
That is a fact. And one of the things that's so interesting, actually, Serena Williams actually talked about this when she had her baby. She said, "Hey, I feel something weird. Something's not right." And they almost didn't listen to her.
Yeah,
And
of course.
I believe they eventually listened to her because of who she was. You know what I'm saying? So, when you have, people with horrible bedside manner, they're not listening to you, they're not taking you serious. They don't care about what you're saying because they think that you're after someone else. Even Brittany, in this one podcast that we guys did, you guys have to check it out. She was 6 months pregnant, lost her baby, and she's like telling me about this experience about, hey, I couldn't get pain medicine. I was telling them that I was hurting, and everybody was just pushing her off. I'm like, oh, do you want some drugs? Do you want this? I'm like, what part in our minds would you think that's okay, and this girl is experiencing this?
Dehumanizing the Black experience and dehumanizing Black pain is really what it comes down to. And that's why we have a lot of the experiences we have as Black women, for sure.
Right. And even in a couple statistics too, it talked a little bit about how doctors felt like Black people's pain tolerance was actually higher. And so
dehumanizing.
Again. And so, they're like, no, Black people actually have the same pain tolerance, And so, I think it's important, we talked a little bit about this on Elizabeth's podcast that was aired the 1st of November. She was talking about, it's important for us to be allies, and she's white. And she was talking about, it's important for women to be allies of each other so that we can petition for one another. Because when you see something wrong and you don't say anything and you walk by it, you're enforcing that. You know what I mean? And so it's important for, for you to find that support group and for you to know your stuff, especially nowadays where we are in the world. You also said something else that was pretty interesting. So you got a doula and a midwife. What is the difference between a doula and a midwife, and how do they kind of navigate themselves in the birthing room? And why did you choose both a doula and midwife?
So a doula, so a midwife is really just a midwife is the doctor. She actually can deliver the baby. The doula is the support that you can have inside and out. You can have my doula unfortunately didn't make it to the birth, but my whole entire pregnancy, I had a support person to just walk through my pregnancy with me, to talk about the ins and outs of being pregnant.
Yeah.
I mean, really relationship stuff. It was really like, I would say, a pregnancy therapist. All things pregnancy, right?
Yeah.
And so really a support person. Doulas don't typically have medical background. My doula actually went to midwifery school. She didn't finish, so she did have both, but typically doulas are not, they don't deal with the medical aspect of it.
Yeah.
But I would just, it's a pregnancy support person they could go with you to appointments. She did come accompany me to some appointments, spend time with you in your home, help you prepare for baby, physically, mentally, and emotional support. That's the best way for me to describe a doula. And the midwife is really there to help you bring the baby into the world, like just all things medical.
Yeah.
So hopefully and that's how it worked for me. I think
that makes sense.
I think it could be different for different people depending on where you are and how, it works out for you. But my doula was really my pregnancy companion. And she also happened to be my friend who was a doula. We were friends before. I mean, she's always been a doula, but we had a personal friendship. And then I asked her to be my doula. And I feel like that also made the difference. And I feel like that also prepared, and I want to use the word prepare very loosely because I feel like there is no preparation.
Yeah.
But I do feel like she prepared and supported me through my pregnancy as much as she could. And even postpartum, she was there for me,
yeah.
which was, I still suffer from postpartum, but I feel like having her there to support me and to validate how I was feeling, even though it was gross, it really was helpful. So
this is so interesting. I am so glad we're talking about all these key points, because somebody out there is probably feeling like alone and not sure. And the things that we're talking about, really, people don't talk about. It's a taboo. It's something that people don't want to talk about. So you have your little one, you feel this bundle of joy, you're so excited. What does this next part of motherhood look like for you?
So, everything goes well. We go home and then it's like breastfeeding,
Mm,
breastfeeding.
mm,
That was an interesting journey in itself. But for me, the biggest thing was like this little human, like, how do I know that she's okay, or that I'm doing everything right, or that she's not gonna, like, something's not gonna happen to her in her sleep. It
yeah.
was just like just so many feelings and thoughts. Like, I feel like that's the postpartum, like just the not being able to just sit with the happiness, the peace of being a new parent and having this precious gift. It's like, what now? Like, are we gonna co-sleep? Is she gonna sleep in her own bed?
Yeah.
My partner being like, she can't sleep with us because I'm gonna roll over on her. And I'm like, no, we're not. It was just so many things. And for me personally, I feel like the hardest thing for me was like, well, first of all, I had a lot of emotions and feelings that I really didn't have any control of, just because of the hormones, all the hormones. My body is transitioning from being pregnant for 9 months to now not being pregnant anymore, transitioning into that, and
Yeah.
breastfeeding and all those hormones. So I feel like my emotions were just very raw and just out there. And on top of trying to mom and breastfeed. And
Yeah.
so I was just very emotional. I feel like for the first 3 months, I cried every day. And some
Mm.
days I didn't even know why I was crying. I was just crying just, just
You said, I
because.
gotta get this out.
Yes. And so what was helpful for me though was my partner. He was like, you're doing a good job. Don't cry. We need you here. Cause at one
Yeah.
point I was like, you just take care of the baby. You don't need me here. I'm not doing a good job. And
Mm.
it was just the postpartum. That's just what it is. And I feel like people experience it differently, depending on your situation, depending on the hormones, whatever. I just feel like, but for me, I was very, very emotional, and I felt a huge amount of anxiety of whether or not I was doing it right or not doing it right. And
Yeah.
going to my baby's doctor's appointments and them saying, oh, we might have to supplement with formula because she's not gaining enough weight. Maybe you're not producing enough milk, which is also another source of anxiety, because that's not necessarily true. Breastfed babies are slower to gain weight, and they're just some things, and the medical model doesn't support that. The medical model
Mm.
doesn't support breastfeeding necessarily, and they don't give you all the tools and the resources that you need to be able to do that long term.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, I'm still successfully breastfeeding, and we're almost 13 months out. But
Yeah.
up until this point, it did not come without its suffering. But yeah, I was just very emotional, is the way to describe it. I just felt raw. I felt open. I felt vulnerable. I felt like there was
Yeah.
nothing that I could do to, like, care for myself.
Yeah. How did you know you had postpartum depression?
I feel like I knew I had it because I was familiar with it, just because of the work that I do. All the moms that I work with, people talk about postpartum all the time. I never
Yeah.
experienced it physically, but I just feel like after the baby and all the crying and just the raw emotions I was feeling, and like the feeling of not being able to control how I felt,
Yeah.
that, yeah. And just the anxiety. I mean, I was completely anxious. The anxiety coupled with the emotions,
Wow.
and just the worry, the constant worry about the baby. Not that anything was happening to her, but all of those things let me know, like, okay, I'm experiencing postpartum.
Hmm. And what did you do? Like, what were your first steps that you were like, I need to get some help, or I need to go do something? What were the steps that you took?
So I started seeing a therapist who I had already been seeing, but I'm kind of a serial go, or just to
Yeah.
therapy. Like, I'll go and then I'll take a break and then I'll go. And I feel like every good mental health therapist has a therapist or has had therapy.
Yeah.
But I started back seeing her. I called her, and it's so funny because she specialized in postpartum, but I didn't know that because I was seeing her before I was pregnant. So I started therapy, and she was validating a lot of what I was experiencing and what I was going through, and normalizing it and letting me know, like, it's gonna pass, and just kind of giving me some tips on like how to work on it. And a lot of it I wasn't getting out. I'm not an introvert, so I think that plays a huge part. So I slowly started to started doing the things that poured into me, like reading, which it's hard to do things when you become a mom for yourself. But I started reading, I started taking walks with my baby, just things like that. And my therapist was supporting. She's like, just take it one day at a time, start doing little things here and there to pour into you. And so that, so that for me, getting out and getting some sunshine was one of the really helpful things that I started doing. And also, which people don't really talk about this, maybe they don't experience it, but not being away from your baby. That, like, allowing other people to care for your baby, even if it's in the same, like, under the same roof. Like, letting someone sit with the baby while you go take a nap, that is hard. Like, sleep while the baby sleeps, that is hard. Like, all the cliche things, like sleep while the baby sleeps, let someone else watch the baby. Like, those things take practice. Those things take practice. My baby is over a year old, and I still am not comfortable, like, not being with her.
Yeah.
So
I have a question. So this is a question I haven't asked anybody, but as you're talking about your journey through motherhood, and you are a new mother, you're going through all these different things, you're taking care of yourself. Did this experience make you reflect on your upbringing? And did you like reach out to your parents or people who raised you to get that affirmation? Like, have you thought about that at all?
Stephanie, that is a great question. And that is one of the reasons why I never really wanted children, was because of my experience overall, childhood, growing up in parents. But absolutely, I'm not as close with my mom as I would like to be. She's always been in my life. She's a great person, but we are just not as close as I would like us to be. And through my pregnancy and now, I am mourning that lack of mother that I have in my life, because I feel like becoming a mom really made me, at least, think about, it caused me to reflect. I've reflected on that relationship, but it was very different through this journey. And it still is. Like, it made me want that. It made me want to have a closer relationship with my mom. It made me want to share that experience with her. It also made me think about my mom in a different way and have empathy and sympathy towards her that I was never able to have, because now I know what it's like to be a mom. But I'm going to share with you what my sister told me. My sister's a mom. She's been a mom. She told me that when she became a parent, she realized that this is her having the opportunity to parent herself in the way that, to parent my nephew the way that she wanted to be parented. And for me, that was so deep.
Wow.
Because that's my motto.
Yeah.
I pour into my baby unconditional love, patience, kindness, and understanding. That is how I'm raising my baby, period. Wow. That is how it's been from day one. And that is how patience, love, kindness, and understanding. Wow. That's it.
Oh,
yeah. That was so deep. It was so deep and profound for me. When she told me that, I was like, that gave me the confidence. I was like, I'm going to be the best mom ever. I'm going to be, that in itself I'm going to be a great mom. I have
And-
no doubt. If that is how I parent from now until the day I die, I have no doubt that I'm going to be a great mom.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. A lot of people, they talk about, and even just like, I haven't really gone into this segment quite yet, but into fatherhood. And there's so many young men that don't have the father in their life, and then they have a child, and then they're not in their life, or they have a child and then they are in their life, and they're trying to be as present, and they're trying to figure everything out as much as possible. And it's like, it's amazing to think about how your upbringing impacts how you either parent or not parent, you know
Absolutely.
what I mean? And it's either going to drive you to be the best and be what your child needs and be even more than what they even expected, that, or you're just completely absent, or maybe in the middle somewhere. But there comes a time where you have to do the work. And I think that's
absolutely.
I think that's the thing that's so hard, is that exactly what you said. You're like, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with this, and now I'm supposed to deal with my mental health and make sure that I'm balancing in myself and making sure I need help, or get the help that I need and get the support I need. Like, those are things that are really hard for people and for them to realize it. And I mean, even just during my short little journey, I have been, going through infertility for 7 years, and probably longer than that. I always go by my diagnosis date, but I just really struggled with the fact that, that I, one, wasn't sure how I was going to parent because of the experience that I had. I was like so worried about parenting out of fear, or even mothering out of fear, or, just because you're like, I went through all this stuff to have this baby, I'm gonna make sure that this, you go through that process. And I have a great nutritionist, and she's kind of been like my doula. She's amazing, and she does a ton of different stuff. But she's Native, and we talk a lot about just like really that spiritual part, and
absolutely,
your baths and making sure you're drinking certain teas to help your body stay calm.
Yes.
And those are things that I think that, so many people have frowned upon for so long. They've gotten away from the things that actually can help them and heal them.
Absolutely. It's healing. Like, we've got away from the healing aspect.
Yeah.
And I'll even talk about my dad. Like, my dad, we've always been close. And I feel like, being becoming a mom has made us closer. We've had conversations that we were never able to have. Because I asked him, like, what was it like when I was this age or when I was born? And he would, tell me, just kind of sharing things with me about my childhood that we've never got to talk about because I wasn't a mom. So it was really not an opportunity for it to come up. But I mean, I feel like it's impossible to parent without thinking about parent successfully and in a healthy way without realizing how much your childhood, past traumas and all of that play into how you parent. It really has to be a mindful thing. And I feel like, as long as I am committed to healing, that is going to determine like how well I'm able to parent my child. So I have to be committed to healing for myself and for the betterment of my child and our relationship as well.
Jeez, that is so deep. So deep. I mean, because so many of us go through so many things, and that rolls into our parenting style. It rolls into how our relationships, So now that this little one is in your life and you've got all this support around you, what message do you have for our listeners today, as they are going through this journey with someone, or maybe they're going through the journey themselves?
I would say that do the best that you can. And I know that sounds cliche, but I would just say do the best that you can and try not to put pressure on yourself. And realize and understand that you are doing the best that you can. Even if you feel like it's not your best, it's your best, because that's what we do, that we give it our best. And what allows us to second guess is us feeling like we're good enough. And I just want to encourage women, in particular moms, regardless of your situation, because again, like I said in the beginning, I feel like I had everything that you would think or want or need to to be pregnant and to have a baby, and I still suffer from postpartum and all the mommy blues, baby blues. I still suffer from that. So I will say that, you know, having a good support and having resources is help. But I feel like just being mindful, taking it one day at a time, and just honoring yourself, honoring who you are, no matter where you are, honoring who you are as a person, and just being okay with that.
Hmm. Ah, that was so beautifully said. You guys, I want to thank you so much for joining our podcast today, Sending Strength and Love. Keyonia, where can people find you? If they're like, you know what, I need to connect with her. I need her in my life. I want to follow her. Where can they find you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram. My handle is KEYTW, and I'm working on my professional website and all of that, so I don't really want to share that yet. But if you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram. KEYTW is my Instagram handle, and that's how you can find me. And you can DM me if you have any questions or want to connect personally or professionally.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You guys, don't worry if you're driving or you're like, where's that pin at? Don't worry. All of her information will be right below this podcast. I want to thank you so much for joining us today on Sending Strength and Love, you guys. Know that you are loved, know that you are worthy, and know that you are beautiful. No matter what you're going through today, I want you to know that we're sending you strength and love. Until next time, you guys, I will see you soon. Bye.